Hello again. This time we're going to look at rearranging formulas. So basically this is solving linear equations, but we don't actually have a numerical answer. We're just going to rearrange the letters and, oh, I can make that move by accident. We're just going to rearrange the letters and have the letter in the brackets by itself at the end. So let's start with something like this. So I want to get A by itself. So if we think about the order of operations, because we're trying to undo an equation, we're actually going to reverse this order. So we want to start with the things that we would normally end with. So I've got A and B together, and so these are multiplying, obviously, no sign means times. And then I have this addition. So I should be doing my multiplication before I do my addition. But because I'm doing it reverse, I'm going to undo it. So if this is adding, I'm going to subtract it instead. So I'm basically doing the opposite of whatever I'm trying to move. So I've got AB, and then I've still got D over here, and instead of adding C, I'm going to subtract it. Now I want to get A by itself, so if you don't have to move the letter you're trying to get by itself, don't. And I don't need to move it. So what I'm going to do is undo this. So if these are multiplying, I'm going to move it by dividing. So D minus C divided by B. So all of this has to divide all of it, right? If I wrote D minus C divide B, that would be incorrect because order of operations says that I should do this first, but I don't want to. I want to do this first and then divide the whole thing by B. So that's one of the reasons why we tend to use fractions instead of division signs. It makes life less complicated. All right, let's try again. So I want to get M by itself this time. So first thing I'm going to do is move this. If it's adding, I'm going to subtract it. So M over 2 equals X minus T. And then the opposite of division is multiplication. So M equals 2 X minus T. Now I must put these brackets in because otherwise if I just wrote 2 times X minus T, I'd have the same problem as this, right? 2 times X minus T. That just means 2 times X minus T, which is not what I want. So I can't write it like that. I must write it like this. Now, technically there's nothing wrong with this, but we do not like to leave brackets in our answer. I haven't really left enough room, have I? So I'm going to use the skill that we learnt last week, which is distributing. So expanding, remember, that's the word we used, which means I multiply what's outside by both parts inside. So 2 times X is 2X, 2 times negative T minus 2T. And that's my answer. I can't do anything else. All right, let's try again here. I'm going to get X by itself. So if I don't have to move X, I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it where it is. Now, the interesting thing about this, I'm just going to grab another color, is that this has a minus sign attached to it. So I've got to make sure I leave this as negative 3x, right? I'm going to move this whole term. So one of the common mistakes people make is they try and add 2m to the other side, but the negative is attached to the 3x, not the 2m. This is a positive. Another way that I could write this would be negative 3x plus 2m, right? These two things mean the same. So what I really have to do is subtract 2m, right? This is the same as this, but it's just written in that order. So now what I have to do is get X by itself. So I have to get rid of this negative 3, and what's it doing to the X? Well, no sign means times. So this is negative 3 times X. So the opposite of times is divide. So I have to divide that whole side by negative 3. So yeah, just watch these signs. This is a really common mistake people make. All right, we're going to do the same thing over here. Now there are two ways you could solve this. You could distribute, but there doesn't really seem to be a point in that. In fact, it actually creates more work for us. So what I'm going to do is recognize that this is multiplying all of this, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to do that instead. So X minus M equals P over 2. Now, if I want to get M by itself, I've got the same problem I did over here, where the negative is attached to the M. So I'm going to leave this as negative M equals P over 2, and I'm going to subtract X. Now the problem with this is, again, I've got M by itself, but it's a negative M. And remember, no sign means times, so this is like a negative 1M. So if it's negative 1 times M, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide everything by -1, which means all the signs change. So really what I'm doing is if I'm changing one sign, I'm changing all the signs, because if I divide anything by -1 or even times anything by -1, all of the signs are going to swap. So I should end up with m equals -p/2 plus x. Okay, last question. So this time we're going to get s by itself. So I'm going to start by moving things around. I'm going to move this first. So 4s/2 equals a minus b. Then I need to move the bottom of my fraction. Well, the opposite of division is multiplication. And then what I'm going to do is divide by 4. Now again, I'm not finished because I've still got brackets and I don't want to have brackets in my final answer. So I'm going to do this distributing thing again. So I'm going to expand my brackets. So 2a minus 2b all over 4. Now this can be simplified. If you'll notice, I can divide every single term by 2, right? So you couldn't just cancel a couple of these things, right? If every term can be divided by 2, then you can do that. So that means s equals a minus b over 2. Another way to think about this is taking out 2 as a common factor. So I can think of this as 2a minus b over 4, which is exactly what I had before here. So you can think about this as cancelling fractions. So 2 over 4 is the same as 1/2, right? So this becomes 1 and this becomes 2, which is why, 1a and 1b over 2. So I don't really care which way you think about it, as long as you recognise you can simplify this fraction. Okay, please let me know if you want me to do any more examples or go through some stuff again. But this is basically just undoing equations by reversing what you would normally do to solve it. Right, good luck.